3, 2, 1. See ya.
Now, picture yourself on the top of a very steep mountain with a vertical cliff on it. Now imagine that you crawl out to the very edge and you look down. You can literally feel it. It feels like you're pulled towards the edge, pulled over the edge. So you crawl back into safety. Wise choice. But, oops, let's go back here. But imagine that you don't do that. Imagine that you take one more step and you jump off. What does that feel like? And why? Why do you do it? Why do you take that extra step? Why not just step back into safety? Because this is definite. There is no turning back. And if you don't do exactly what you're supposed to do, you will be dead in 15 seconds from now. So, why do they do this? Why? There must be something calling them. It must be some positive. It must be a positive experience. It must be. Well, so what's a positive experience? Well, this is a kangaroo. And we pulled this image of a postcard. Because, and I like it very much, because this guy, he really enjoys the moment. He likes very much what he's doing right now. He's chilling out, he's having the time of his life. So this is liking. And liking, that is when you feel satisfied, you feel happy, you feel content. Liking, that is like crawling back into bed an early Sunday morning, or sinking into a hot bath. Liking, that's when you can let your mind go blank and don't have a single worry at all. But that's not quite like base jumping, is it? No, so there must be some other positive experiences. There must be something else. And sure, there is. We have another dimension or category, if you like, that we call wanting. So wanting, that is when you want something that you don't yet have. Wanting, that is pushing yourself to the limits, stretching on. Wanting, that is to seek new and complex and novel experiences. Wanting, that is to compete with yourself and try to beat yourself to the finish line every time. Now, this is about getting better than you really are. This is when you say, okay, I'm ready, bring it on. Because you're all in, and you have to be. In base jumping, you have to be all in. So, because when you stand on the top of a mountain and you're about to head into new terrain, you're on the edge, you jump off, and it's into the unknown. And base jumping, that's like many other things, it doesn't come with any guarantees. Base jumping, as soon as you've left this edge, there is no turning back. And at the end of the day, you are on your own. Well, let's take a closer look on how this feels. There's a lot of ways to ask, and I asked as a researcher. So we designed a study, and I hung out with some base jumpers for a time. And this is what we did. We measured emotions both before, during, and after this jump. And here's a graph. On this graph, you could see how pleasant on top, or unpleasant in the bottom, a jump like this feels. So picture this first axis here on the bottom as time. And this is the jump. This is immediately before. And if you move all the way over here, this is immediately after. Now, standing on top, and I've been there, it's really uncomfortable. You really don't like it at all. Because adrenaline, that's not good. The adrenaline is pumping, your heart is pounding, you're sweating, and you're really, really dead scared. That's on top. Because the exit, that's the most critical point on a base jump. Because as soon as you jump off, you don't have any speed, and therefore you don't have any possibility to maneuver. But after a few seconds, you gain speed, you gain the possibility to maneuver, and you could start flying. So things are more under control now. And then you could see that you like this a bit more. Yeah, the liking increases. So you fly out from the wall for 20 to 30 seconds, and then the ground is approaching. And here is another critical point. It's time to pull the parachute, and you don't know how or even if it opens. So pressure decreases, but you pitch, and it opens. And finally, you're flying towards the landing area. Everything is fine. But here comes another problem. You're about to land. And landing areas for base jumpers, they're normally quite small. Often, they're full of rocks. So this is another critical point. And you, liking, just like the flying you, drops. But as soon as you've set foot on ground, the pleasure, or liking if you like, shoots off the scale. So we also recorded the heartbeat. And to say this very simple, high heart rate means that you have a higher level of stress. A lower heart rate means that you have a bit lower level of stress, to keep it simple. So we see the same pattern, only reversed. That on top, you have almost maximum heart rate. But as soon as you get things more under control, heart rate decreases, the liking increases, and there's one less thing to worry about. But you're approaching the ground, well, heart rate increases, liking decreases, but that worked out as well. Still alive, and you have the same top when you're about to land. So, the last thing is this wanting dimension, because this is the liking dimension. Now, let's take a look at this wanting dimension, the feelings that are... So, wanting, that is this blue line on top. Because this wanting dimension, that is on top through the whole jump. So, it is the wanting dimension that motivates you to do a base jump, but as soon as you get things under control, you are rewarded with a boost of pleasure. And when you're finished, that's a big boost. So, what would you imagine that a base jump feels like? We have a lot of options. There's a full spectrum of feelings. It could be happiness, sadness, fear, anger. It turns out that base jumpers, they use only a small part of this spectrum. Some emotions, like sadness, disappears from the map. But the one emotions that they experience those more intensely and more clearly. And this has to do with focus. And focus has to do with the always present risk. Because base jumping is risky, extreme sport. So let me explain a bit about risk and focus, because that's quite important. It's commonly believed that base jumpers or extreme sport athletes seek risk. But that's not quite right. Extreme sport athletes and base jumpers, they are very concerned about safety. And that might seem like a paradox, that you choose to jump off a mountain and still you're very concerned about your own safety. But they are. They try to minimize this risk into a minimum. But if you could, you can't, but if you could, take the risk totally away, make base jumping 100% safe, well, then you would take away something really fundamental to this experience. So, why is that? Well, we are constantly bombarded with stimuli from TV, from cell phones, news, commercials, everything. But we can only pay attention to one thing at a time. So multitasking, that's not being able to pay attention to several things at the same time. No, multitasking, that's the ability to pay attention to one thing at a time, but to move your attention very rapidly. But, as I said, in base jumping, you need to be all in. Base jumping, that demands your full attention. You have to be really, really on. And this forces you to be present. So this feeling of intense focus and intense concentration, that is the feeling of base jumping. And that is the feeling of being alive. And it's the feeling of being you. Now that's the essence of base jumping. So, seeking positive experiences, that's not just for extreme sport athletes or base jumpers. No, we all do it. Sometimes we have our time of our life and we wouldn't change anything for $1 million. Not at all. Other times, we push ourselves to do something that scares us. Well, for example, asking a girlfriend to marry you. That's scary. She could say no. You could be rejected. If we ask people to make a list of what that scares them the most, you would get fear of heights all the way on top. Below that, you would get fear of snakes, fear of diseases and death and spiders and so on. But just below that, you would find fear of public speaking. So right now, we have a positive experience, a wanting positive experience unfolding right here. So I'm wearing a heart rate monitor, and my heart is ticking away at 155 beats a minute. So my palms are quite sweat, and to be honest, I really have to focus not to prevent my hands from shaking, because this is my base jump, and I'm way over the edge. And for me, there's no turning back. So I'm just looking for a soft spot to land, really. But before I land, I would like to return to the film clip that I showed you in the beginning of this talk. Because this film clip is of one of my informants. He's a great guy called named Ryan Saunders. So he is jumping from a mountain called Karlskotin, that is in Romsdalen, up in Norway. Well, this mountain has a bump, which separates the very good base jumpers from the average ones. Because if you are a very good base jumper, you could fly your body like a wing, just like the ski jumpers. They do like this. And you could track away from the wall over this bump, and you could fly all the way out into this big green main valley. But if you're not that good, you will have to pull your parachute after just a fraction of the time to prevent yourself from slamming into this bump. And the tracking experience stops, and it's all a canopy ride from there on and out. So Ryan, he has been working with this for 2 years. And today, he finally makes it. So try to imagine how this feels. But before I let you see this film clip, I have to warn you. The language that is used is that's not for the faint-hearted.
Have a good one, dude. I'm probably good to go, eh?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, see ya. Yes! Fucking yes! Fucking yes! That was fucking awesome! Yes! Yeah! I don't care if I sound like the biggest retard in the world. That was fucking awesome! Oh! 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 Woo! 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 Yeah! I fucking did it! Yes! Oh! Woo!
Right. Thank you very much for your attention.